Hey, what's up y'all? It's your boy Iceman and Bob. In today's video, we're going to take a look between firmware version 1448 and 1503 on the Samsung S95B. Now, I'm going to go ahead and tell you up front that unless you're running, say, firmware version 1200, whatever, 1098, some of the OG firmwares, if you have been in the 1300s, if you're on any of the 1400 firmware versions, then I highly recommend you to just go ahead and update to 1503. It is definitely worth it. It is definitely safe. I don't see any issues, nothing being broken. Everything has improved. Everything is being fixed. And at the very least, a few things just stay the same. So right off the bat, I want to go ahead and tell you, go ahead and update to 1503. It is safe. It is safe. It is safe. And for those of you that have not done so, I will get a comparison out between 1503 and 1520 in a later video. I'm aware there's a newer version, but I have to do a lot of different settings and change things and calibrations and turn this on and that off and all types of measurements. So it takes me a little bit longer to capture footage and details and information before I update, because as we all know, once you update, you can't go back. So with that being said, as far as the actual brightness differences, I really did not see a significant difference. Now, I know many people have been going into comment sections all over the internet, also on forums, and some people have been saying, hey, 1503 is definitely brighter. It's so much brighter. Now, what I have noticed in comparison again to 1448 is that the nit measurements are roughly the same. We've obviously have taken a look at that on the screen. I haven't seen any significant changes. Sometimes it can fluctuate 10 to 30 nits or so, give or take. I mean, yeah, maybe on one scene it might be brighter here. On another scene, I've seen 1448 brighter. So it's really scene by scene basis. And so on that note, what I did notice is that the tone mapping is better on 1503. So when people say, hey, 1503 is brighter, it's not that it's actually brighter nit measurement wise, but the tone mapping is better. I highly suggest it. It's just going to give you an overall presentation and you're not going to lose anything. Now, what I've noticed is that in terms of the brightness, I do want to comment on this before I move on to another area. We still have that issue with game mode where the brightness is not what it once was. And so what I recommend is, if you want that brightness back, you're going to have to take one of two options. Either you're going to have to turn on contrast enhancer, and this goes for both SDR and HDR game. Okay, I'm only talking about the game mode currently. You're going to have to either turn contrast enhancer on to your liking, most likely high, or leave it off. Obviously, if you turn contrast enhancer on, you're going to destroy your accuracy. Now, some people don't care. I mean, it is what it is. It's your TV, and I understand. I know how to calibrate TVs, and I get it, but you'll have to either do that or go into the service menu, and you're going to have to do the max lux mods and anti-peaks and all that stuff. Now, I have instructions in other videos on how to do that. If you don't know how to, again, you're doing this at your own risk. Now, me, I have equipment and software, and I can calibrate things and keep everything within the same parameters. Now, I will tell you, I've been running those type of settings for months and months and months, all day, every day. No screensaver coming on. All of that stuff's turned off. My son uses the TV. He leaves stuff on pause, bright screens, no burn-in, no issues whatsoever. Most people on any of these OLEDs, while I'm on the subject, I don't care if it's WRGB, QD OLED, whatever, you're not going to have any burn-in issues. Unless you're a hardcore PC user and you use your TV as a monitor, you're not going to have any issues. So let's just throw out the burn-in issues unless you maybe plan on keeping the TV for 10, 20 years. And let's just be honest, people. Most of us are enthusiasts and we plan on upgrading every couple of years, if not every year or every other year. I mean, this is just facts. Most of us do upgrade. Even people that buy Sonys, I hear it all day long. They get it, they say they're going to keep it, and then they see the new latest and greatest, and then they end up updating after like 2 or 3 years. Like I said, maybe 4 or 5. But there's no issues is what I'm trying to say. But just know you can run into a warranty issue potentially. Again, potentially. Most likely not, but potentially. If you do any service menu changes. Those are the only 2 ways to fix the brightness back with game mode. But again, the contrast enhancer will mess with the accuracy. Okay. Now, speaking of any changes, I have put out some previous settings, and what I'm finding out is that Samsung seems to be applying the ideal settings right out the box with the firmware changes. So you only need to change like 1 or 2 things as opposed to before changing this and changing that to try to get everything accurate. They are improving the tone mapping and improving the accuracy. So as far as Filmmaker Mode SDR, I didn't really see any changes. Everything looks the same. So I'm gonna put what those settings are in the description box. I have it in previous videos, but I will list it there. I didn't see any changes. Obviously, when it comes to the picture clarity settings, that's the motion settings, you're gonna have to change that to your liking. I really don't want to get into that because some people might like more of this, less of that, etc., right? But nonetheless, everything looks pretty much the same when it comes to Filmmaker Mode SDR. And while I'm on the subject, this is pretty much across the board for all picture modes. So I'm just using Filmmaker Mode as the template, so to speak, but it's essentially the same going across the board. Now, when you go to Filmmaker Mode HDR, what I've seen is that I've recommended color to be down to 22, but I've seen it be set at 25 essentially. And that's the same thing that normally it's set for movie mode. So it's not a drastic difference, but you're going to see it at 25 versus 22. Honestly, people, you could just leave it at 25. Most of you do not calibrate your sets, so just leave it there, okay? Again, I'm not going to get into the picture clarity settings. That's a personal preference. And everything else is essentially the same. The SD2084, shadow detail, the color tone is in warm 2. Now, I will mention, when you go into the very first main menu, when you hit the button on the remote and you see all your options come up, it will default the color tone in certain picture modes to standard. So you just may want to go ahead and change that to warm 2. But in terms of the actual expert settings, when you go into the main menu, it's the same. Now, when you go into game mode SDR, everything is going to be the same except for the color. Once again, I recommend it 22. In game mode SDR, you're going to find it set to 30. Again, people, you can just leave it at 30. I didn't see any reason to really change it, especially if you're not going to calibrate your sets. It's not a drastic difference. And if you want that extra color, it's so slight. I mean, honestly, I would just leave it at 30. But again, normally 22 is what I previously recommended. Again, the tone mapping is better in 1503. All right. They also have the contrast enhancer on high. It's going to default on high on firmware 1503. Again, you'll like the brightness, but it's going to destroy the accuracy. It's your personal choice, but it's recommended to have contrast enhancer off. You will want to turn that off to retain the accuracy, okay? The color tone should be on warm 2, but it's going to default to standard. So change the color tone to warm 2, all right? On the color space settings, you would normally want it on auto or custom, but it's going to default to normal, okay? So you want to change it from normal to auto or custom. Again, these are the settings you want if you want accuracy. If you don't care about accuracy, hey, have at it. All right, and then when it comes to game mode HDR, I've recommended contrast previously to be at 45. You're going to find it be set at 50. All right, again, this is on firmware version 1503. It will default to 50. Again, people, it's not a drastic difference. especially if you're not calibrating it. It's fine if you want to leave it at 50. Same thing, color, I previously recommended it to be at 18 because that's when you activate the BT 2020. In previous firmware versions, it would add too much color when you turn BT 2020 on. So I had recommended it to be at 18. It will default at 30. Once again, people, because the tone mapping is better, I haven't seen a drastic difference. So if you want to leave it at 30, it's fine, especially if you're not calibrating the sets. If you like that little extra color, to me, it just gives a little bit extra without being the radioactive colors that people like to crack jokes about with Samsung. Yeah, you won't see that. Also, once again, contrast enhancer in game mode HDR will be set to high on 1503, right? So you want to go ahead and turn that off. You're going to love the brightness, but you're going to have to turn that off if you want accuracy, okay? It's going to mess with everything and throw everything off. Also, the color tone will default to standard in 1503. Once again, you want to set that to warm too. Guess what, people? The whole ST2084 slider debacle has now been fixed. They fixed it in 1503. It was not working on firmware version 1448 and previous versions. It is now fixed, so you can slide the ST2084 slider in game mode HDR and it does work. Just leave it in 0, but again, you can adjust it if you choose. Also, you will find the shadow detail will default to 2. Okay, that's in firmware 1503. It will default to 2. You could set it to 0. Honestly, I didn't see a significant difference. Again, this is not referring to calibration. I'm going to get a calibration video comparison out shortly, all right? But just leave it set. It's pretty much fine, y'all. I like how it looks because of the tone map and they clean things up. It looks good. And you're going to find the color space settings, right? It will default to normal. So what you want to do is go change it to custom and select BT 2020. Now, again, previously when you would select BT 2020 with the color space settings, you would have to dial back the colors. Now, I'm going to go in and look in terms of calibration and accuracy, but I can tell you, even with leaving the color set at 30 and turning BT 2020 on, it still looks better. Again, I haven't really officially gone hardcore and looked at the measurements and see how on or how off things are. But again, it has improved. So if you like that, Samsung's known for that extra pop. I say it's fine to leave it. But again, you can lower it to your liking. I would not take it down lower than 18 though. It's going to look too dull. So other than that, everything looks good. I highly recommend this update. I'm going to, as I mentioned earlier, get a comparison between 1503 as it defaults, and then we're going to do a comparison with the Calibrated. I will also get a comparison between 1503 as well as 1520. I just need to get done with 1503, capturing everything and measuring everything so that I can go ahead and jump up to 1520. But I will say this is a move in the right direction, and I'm so happy for Samsung. So with that being said, enjoy your S95Bs. Please like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think. I will have more content out coming very soon. And just go ahead and enjoy the rest of this video. Thank you so much for your time, for your energy, for your likes, for your support, for your comments. I really do appreciate y'all. And with that being said, as I always say, until we stream again.
After all these years, we never talked about it. Why I brought you back. Why you were chosen. The truth is, I didn't know then. It was just a feeling. But I know now. After all we've seen, all we've lost, this fight might be our last. So I'm asking you one last time to rise.